Carbon nanofiber magnetic nanofluids provide a means of modifying thermal transport through the field-induced orientation of anisotropic fillers. Previous experimental studies have focused mainly on the limiting parallel and perpendicular configurations, while the thermal response at intermediate orientations has remained insufficiently validated. In this work, we studied a kerosene-based ferrofluid containing graphitized carbon nanofibers. Two carbon nanofiber types were considered, PR19, with an approximate diameter of 150 nanometers, and PR24, with an approximate diameter of 100 nanometers, at volume fractions up to approximately 1.3%. Thermal characterization was performed using a thermal wave resonator cavity, or TWRC, mounted inside a Helmholtz coil. In this technique, a modulated laser generates periodic thermal waves that propagate through the sample and are detected at the opposite side of the cavity. Analysis of the thermal response allows the thermal diffusivity to be determined and subsequently used to obtain the effective thermal conductivity. A uniform magnetic field of 200 Gauss, equivalent to 20 millitesla, was applied at 5 orientations relative to the heat flow direction: 0, 30, 45, 60, and 90 degrees. Measurements were also performed without an applied field, representing the randomly oriented condition. The objective was to determine whether the effective thermal conductivity follows a predictable cosine-square angular dependence across this complete range of orientations. The results are organized around three main aspects: the dependence of effective thermal conductivity on alignment angle and carbon nanofiber concentration, the multi-angle validation of the cosine-square behavior, and an independent validation using randomly oriented samples. First, we analyze how the normalized effective thermal conductivity varies with alignment angle and carbon nanofiber volume fraction for both PR19 and PR24. The normalized effective thermal conductivity exhibits two clear trends for both carbon nanofiber systems. As the alignment angle increases from 0 to 90 degrees, thermal conductivity decreases systematically, with the highest values obtained when the carbon nanofibers are aligned parallel to the heat flow direction. In contrast, increasing the carbon nanofiber volume fraction produces a consistent increase in thermal conductivity at every field orientation. The parallel configuration provides the maximum enhancement, whereas the perpendicular configuration gives the lowest response. Both carbon nanofiber types follow the same overall behavior, with PR19 reaching slightly higher conductivity values. Next, the angular dependence is examined more directly by plotting the normalized effective thermal conductivity as a function of cosine squared theta for both PR19 and PR24. When the normalized effective thermal conductivity is plotted against cosine squared theta, a clear linear dependence appears for both PR19 and PR24. Each line corresponds to a different carbon nanofiber concentration, and the slope becomes steeper as the volume fraction increases, indicating stronger thermal anisotropy at higher carbon nanofiber content. The 5 field-aligned orientations define the linear fits, while the open symbols represent the random orientation measurements, which were excluded from the regression. Their agreement with the same trend provides additional evidence that the angular response follows a cosine square dependence. This experimental behavior is also consistent with the Lewis-Nielsen framework, in which the effective form factor describing carbon nanofiber geometry and orientation follows the same angular dependence. These 3 highlights summarize the main outcomes: maximum thermal enhancement, multi-angle validation, and independent confirmation using the random orientation condition. In summary, this work demonstrates a predictable and controllable angular dependence of thermal transport in carbon nanofiber magnetic nanofluids. We welcome questions and interest in future collaborations. Thank you for your attention.